Welcome to the Healing for Male Survivors podcast. This is a podcast for male survivors of sexual abuse and assault, whether as a child or as an adult. Know that you are not alone and the abuse was not your fault. My name is Mike Chapman. I'm a certified recovery life coach and also a survivor. Let's find hope and healing together. And welcome to the Healing for Male Survivors podcast. I'm your host, Mike Chapman. A reminder to my live audience, we honor anonymity. We will only state your name if you manually type it in with your comment or question. And if you would like to join us live on future podcasts, you can learn more about how to do so at polarlifeconsulting.com/live. In today's episode, we continue our discussion with Jarrett Davis. Last week we had part 1, and today we continue with part 2, learning more about his story.
But then, and I think that, and just there's a number of things that I could pull out, a lot, but particularly that, and then the genuine belief, it really emotionally got a lot worse when I entered my teenage years and kept convincing myself that I was at my core evil.
What a big burden you put on yourself. I mean, I must be evil.
I believed it, even though all of the stuff that I was, but I believed that I was evil because I was a pedophile, first of all. Right, I believed at the age of 9, 10, something like that.
Right. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So moving back to therapy, that all these underlying things, it's not just ADHD, it's all these other things as well. So obviously you start with talk therapy. What other things, what modalities did your therapist use? And what have you, it was a she, right?
I've had 3 different therapists. So I had 3 she's, one non-binary, and 1 male.
Oh, okay.
So I've done the whole spectrum.
There you go. So what kind of modalities did they use on you above and beyond talk therapy, and what did work and what was helpful and what not so much?
I started with a lot of CBT.
Right, cognitive behavioral therapy. Basically talk therapy, basically.
Yeah. And then I moved into, I did some of the EDMR, the eye movement desensitization.
Reprocessing, yes.
Reprocessing.
Yes.
With my second to last, therapist. The one but right now, then I kind of had a little bit of this was actually just last year, though, that I started.
Hold on, back up to EMDR. How was that experience for you? I've never done EMDR.
I didn't get enough into it, but I can see how there's I've done a little bit of it, and I can see how it might, because it's really just, it's about honing in on a particular feeling or
right.
And then honing in on that particular thing, and then having that bilateral motion that kind of helps reprocess.
Right. Some kind of bilateral stimulation, whether it's tactily or visually or auditorially, that you get the brain, both sides of your brain working in tandem, but it's the back and forth. So it's not both at the same time. It's like boop, 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 boop. It's like a giant game of Pong in your head, going back and forth through those old boomers like me that Pong. That was like the first video game. It was so cool. It's like boop, boop. Yeah, it's like boop, 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 boop. Just.
Oh, I love Pong. Still a Pong.
Boop, boop, just back and forth. To constantly having that stimulus that then messes up the synapses that normally fires. So it
interrupts that circuit or something of your
right. And so you can get into trauma in theory.
Mm-hmm.
Never had it. My therapist is like, no, you don't need that. You need this other stuff. It's like, okay, all right.
I enjoyed it.
Sessions tend to be exhausting. People come out of EMDR sessions, it's like, no, you're spent for maybe a day afterwards. That was your experience as well?
I mean, I didn't get into it enough. We did mostly, it was talk therapy, and we were kind of getting into it slowly. Okay. And then my insurance changed and I had to change.
So you're just starting. Okay. Yeah.
But because I've been reading a lot on internal family systems as a modality. Right. And I really, the metaphor of it of you. So essentially, like if family systems is like studying how different systems of families would interrelate, how and all of that. That's basically applying that to yourself inside. So there are
And the
parts
parts,
of you
right? Yes.
in your trauma. There might be a part of you that is sort of forged in that trauma and that part might then show up later on in your life throughout similar traumas and fight for you in a way that you weren't able to fight in that first trauma. So it might be that part might be angry. There might be a part that's just shut down, or there might be a part that just wants to please everybody. You know, there's all these different parts, but it's really just about having a conversation. You kind of like talking about those parts, but then you kind of spend some time in mindfulness and you sit and and so a lot of times our sessions is just me literally sitting right here in this chair, and I'll have a particular maybe trauma or a particular trigger or a particular something that I'm working on.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll kind of start with that, and we'll kind of get to know that part a little bit. We'll try to have a conversation with that part, and then maybe some other feel. And I'm just kind of like, if you ask the part this, what do you hear? What does that part say? And it sounds ridiculous,
Right.
but once you develop the relationships, you kind of understanding, because you know these parts, and these parts know you because they are you.
Right.
They respond back. It's in your head, right? But they respond back because you're talking to that part of yourself, which is really alive. And so ultimately, it is about realizing that these parts, even though they might seem to be hurting you, and maybe they harm you because they cause you to blow up, or or cause you to do whatever because you're triggered, or ultimately it is about developing and building a relationship with those parts to bring them back to you, and to realize that they have your best interests at heart, that they actually want you, that they are there. You might be exploding, but the reason why you're exploding, the part genuinely is still living in that moment when you were young and were unable to take care of yourself. So it is about having a conversation, say, I really appreciate, and it's about also practicing kind ways of speaking to yourself, which is hard.
Right.
You said like, hey, I know what you're trying. I know that you're trying to help me. God, thank you. Thank you for protecting me in the way that you have. But do you know that a lot of years have passed, and now I'm an adult. I'm a full grown adult, and I've had a lot of life experiences, and I can now make decisions. We can make decisions on our own now. There's all sorts of ways that you could be still playing your part, but it's about developing that relationship and learning to have these kind conversations with those parts of yourself.
Right.
You might label them, you might give them names, they might look like a particular thing, but it's ultimately bringing that family together and getting that family to function.
Right.
And I found that metaphor to be, it fits with my experience. Yeah.
Absolutely. My therapist did similar things. I don't know if he called it IFS, but yeah, the parts, and the part that they traditionally have held since childhood, saying, yeah, okay, why are you trying to understand the part? Well, why are you doing this? Why are you responding this way? But then, hey, let's graduate from that. And now you have a new role and a new position. So it's like, oh, okay. And then they're like, all four. It's kind of relates, but it's a positive thing. And then they're like, all four. It's kind of relates, but it's a positive thing. So
they become your superpowers, actually.
Right. Exactly. And then, yeah, kind of training them to say, well, I don't have to do that. I can now do this instead. And that's going to help you. Well, I can do that. Okay. All right, cool. And have all that internal stuff going on. And yeah, it's so weird. It's all this weird brain sciencey stuff that's just come out in like the last 10 or 15 years.
It sounds ridiculous. Like I can literally hear yeah.
It's weird mumbo jumbo, but it works. I'm a brain spotting provider, and I do brain spotting sessions. And I was in a hot seat for one. We did a demo podcast several episodes ago. It's weird. I don't get how it works, but it works. And it's your mind. There's what's the word? Neuroplasticity.
Yeah,
that's the word. Your brain, even for old folks like me, your brain can still change for new synapses and learn and develop and change.
And the more that you practice it, the better you get at it. It's literally a skill like any other skill, like building a muscle.
Right. And another comment from the audience, EMDR is very hard on you, but can be very helpful at the same time. Yes, it is exhausting, but it's good because you're going very deep, going through those traumas. And because of that, you are mentally and physically exhausted.
Like it's easy to miss how exhausting it is because you don't always, especially I think if you're like a guy who has just been raised to
Right.
separate yourself from your emotions, you might end therapy feel basically this, and maybe I had a really good session or maybe I had a really challenging session, but then you go on through the day and you realize I'm really angry about something and like it doesn't always get better. But then
Right.
you realize, why am I angry? And all of a sudden you realize this whole thing is happening under you because you may have just made a connection externally during that call, but your brain, that sets this whole cascade effect as you're kind of trying to resolve all of these errors in your brain that, wait, I wasn't wrong when that happened. That means that. And therefore, you get this cascade of like real, it's not conscious all the time, but your brain's doing a lot of work. You let
Right.
yourself sleep, you wake up the next morning, your brain's done all that defragmentation while you sleep. It changes. It does, little by little.
Absolutely. So, what things have you tried in therapy that not successful, didn't really help? Let's move on. Anything come to mind?
I think when people like want to have me like keep a journal
Oh, I hate journals.
or it's your neurodiverse. That's why it's awful.
I absolutely hate journaling, though the best substitute I got on Male Survivor, which is online blog, and I could just type, share my story there, and then get comments. It's like, oh, well,
Mm.
I like that. So it's not just for me, and it's out there.
Real time, you get dopamine from it.
Right, right. And it's like, oh, okay, well, I can do that. Yeah, when I first, 2019, I first learned that they even existed, I poured my heart out. Because I was trying to understand my trauma, and that's how we were able to suss out was with Male Survivor that I'd been trafficked. Just well, I got this memory block. Well, what do you remember? Okay, well, that was this. What? Yeah, yeah, that was a sexual exploitation event that you were brought to. What? Yeah, you were trafficked. What? What? All this stuff happened in those rooms. Just pouring myself out, sharing my story, reading the other stories. There's a search function. It's like, anyone else deal with this? No, hardly anyone. Okay. Well, I'm going to put it out there, see what people say. And it's like you just get so much feedback. And it was so helpful. But any way you can get it out of your head, get it out of your heart, whether it's on paper, on
Yep.
blog, or a
Becomes real.
creative endeavor, whether it's painting. I love art therapy, painting, music, whatever you can do to get it out. It helps the healing because then you're just not ruminating on it anymore. It's out. It's like, oh, it's out there. Oh, I don't have to think about this anymore. It's out there. Okay. And it helps so much.
We can move on to the next thing.
Right, right. So journaling, never a fan. Never a fan. Though there's alternatives. So yeah, I agree. I hated journaling. We've got a comment. Also, they're saying, I found journaling has worked for me. I was able to really see growth over the years, and I started it almost 3 years ago. Kudos.
Cool.
Glad that helped. Absolutely.
Does not work. It is not accessible. Not accessible for neurodiverse people. Not at all.
Yeah, yeah. Now, moving into now, you're doing all this research now, learning about male survivors of child sexual exploitation, uh, and internationally in the U.S. and otherwise. What has been the most surprising thing you have found in the research? Anything that just stands out? It's like, wow, I can't believe we're finding that. What things are you finding now?
I mean, of course, there's like maybe a little like there's initial shock at just maybe like initially like with some of the like, different things of trafficking and exploitation, but after a while you're kind of like I mean, every story, of course, is like when you put a human with it. It's but at the same time, when you're looking at it in the aggregate, you're kind of like,
Okay, now explain. These are researchy terms, and I'm just new in the field. So an aggregate. Explain
oh,
it.
so like if we're looking at it like if we're attached with a person is it's always going to be like really real. Like when you're attaching it with a person, when you're looking at it in the aggregate, it's kind of like which means you're looking at like a bunch of kind of like across the board. You're looking at patterns and things like that. Like
Basically the stats, the numbers. Yeah.
like that does take a huge emotional toll, I think. and there is like, I'm sorry, remind me of what the question was, because I'm afraid that I might.
What did you find most surprising in the research?
Okay. So in some ways, like part of me wants to say early on, I found something surprising there, right? But I think in reality, looking back, I think probably one of the most surprising things was not necessarily what was happening, because I understand how and why that happens. It doesn't make it any better, but I understand some of that. What I was really surprised about is politically, particularly like within the UN, within a lot of different like development circles, NGO circles, things like that.
Non-government organizations.
Yeah, sorry, non-government organizations, nonprofits is actually, you say NGO because it's what they say in Cambodia,
Right.
but like a nonprofit.
And in the research world, it's NGO. So
Yeah.
it's like, what's an NGO? Oh, okay, so I know the term, but I know not everyone out there will know that term. So yes.
And I forget that because it
Right.
is literally just like
It's
vernacular
right.
now.
It's right.
But remind me what I was saying.
About surprising things about research that international.
Right. So I was really surprised is how, in some instances, how intentionally men are kept out of the conversation. Now, this is very different from the men's rights, right-wing kind of conversation.
Right. They assume it only happens to women and girls, and it never happens to men and boys, that they would be the perpetrators.
It's kind of like this, like what they call like second wave feminism, or kind of
Right.
like, it's like an old school kind of feminism that essentially wants to demonize men and boys as inevitably the perpetrators, and women and girls as like fragile, dainty butterflies that are inevitably in need of protection, which isn't actually very feminist.
Right. Right.
So it kind of undermines feminism. And now we can say that. Now I can say that, and there's not a lot of pushback. Like, yeah, that does undermine feminism. When I started this work in 2010, I mean, it was
right.
I've had people, I kid you not, I've been in coffee shops. So I worked with Alistair Hilton and a few other people in Cambodia, and they're kind of known as like the people who work on men and boys and exploitation, things like that. And I mean, we're completely unrelated. I've been in meetings in a coffee shop in like Phnom Penh. And Phnom Penh is like, there are like the UN and there's like nonprofits. They're literally scattered everywhere. Like,
right.
But so I was in a coffee shop. Someone from UN Women happens to be in the same coffee shop and overhears me talking about, and I'm literally only talking about a study that we're saying. So like basically explaining to someone just basically about how vulnerability works and why they're vulnerable and how they get overlooked, which is very common to talk about. Literally, I've had it where I've had people overhear my conversation. And it wasn't that, oh, you're doing something for kids or you're doing something XYZ. It's literally like, oh, 90% of, and they will give you some sort of statistic that could easily be debunked. But they would give you, and they just butt in. And I'm just like, who are you? I don't know you from Adam, first of all. And it's just like, I bet you work with this person, don't you? Yeah, like, I'm just like, yeah. And it's just like, well, and they're just like, who are you? And why are you, like, literally people that are like, viscerally angry. And I'm like, you got your own stuff you got to deal with. This is not about kids. I literally have tried to write it off as like right-wing men's rights kind of ideology. I'm like, no, I'm saying men as human rights. Like, we all have the right to not experience abuse, to be protected, to have systems that care for us, that actually respond to us. And that doesn't take away, they see it as like pie. Like if you take some away from women, if you add men and boys, then you're inevitably taking away from women and girls.
Right.
That's not how this works. It is additive, right? You're not just adding things for men and boys that girls aren't allowed to be. You're literally expanding definitions. You're being inclusive. You're saying that, hey, maybe it's not even so cut and dried that it's just the man box and the women box. There's a whole spectrum of things and experiences and identities, and all of them are valid because they're human experiences.
It's and not just males who are perpetrators and females who are victims, that males are buyers and sellers and victims, and females are also buyers and sellers and victims. Yep. So it's and all of it.
Yeah, but men and boys are so much more with the men. I was just like, well, yeah, but we also, it's much more underreported because we only report what we're programmed to see. We don't ask the same questions of boys as we do with girls. We don't have, like, if you really see it, how all of the gaping holes in child protection, just like massive gaps. I mean, in our work, street working children, a series of studies that we did with street working boys and girls, we're literally just finishing. We did these a long time ago. Now we're writing a paper that kind of like looks at all of them as a series. But Basically, in the 5 different cities, we did like 2 cities in Bangkok, Sihanoukville, Phnom Penh, Manila. So we had 5 different cities around Southeast Asia, and we talked to boys and girls, so kids that were working on the street, basically. And we worked with social workers, and they kind of had these long conversations with snacks, and they just kind of like just one-on-one, and they just had a conversation about stuff, and they talked about people that might have touched them in a way that they didn't like in an ethical kind of way.
Right.
It unfolds things.
Right, without using abuse or trafficking or assault,
Right.
but say basically
Right.
the ick factors. This icky thing happened. However, that
Exactly.
translates.
We had in a sample, I think, first of all, in the Philippines, the year that we put out the study, they had counted, I think they had on record about 28 boys who would report, who on the records, like 28 boys in the whole year for the whole country
Mhm,
that had experienced abuse.
mhm.
1,900 and some girls. Now, first of all, those are low numbers. The 1,000 and some is very,
Right,
very low. They
right.
present them as if they're prevalence numbers. They had 28 cases.
Mhm,
We had a sample of 55 boys.
mhm.
In the sample of 55 boys, we had 36 that had
Wow.
had some form of sexual violence. So whether that's touching, whether that's being given money, food,
Mhm,
shelter for sex, whether that's just straight up like sexual violence from
mhm.
police, from teachers. We found a sample of 55. We found, say, like there's
36.
36. Yes, 36. We found more, not like literally as a number, in our sample than they did for the entire country for the entire year in a country of
Right,
110 million people.
right.
Like it's just so through and what we found when we combine across those cities, look at the rates of boys and girls, we find that boys in every single city that we went to, boys on the street at least, were far more likely to, in some cases twice, sometimes just slightly more. I think there was one city, Bangkok, where they were even, but boys were considerably more likely to report sexual violence on the streets, and largely that's because if you're, it's not about general society.
Mhm.
But if you're a family living on the street, if you have boys and girls, culture, logic, everything like says you keep the girls close to home and watch them, and you let the boys go out and do the more dangerous work.
So even more of a
It's
chance
simple.
of getting exploited.
Yeah.
Wow.
It
Wow.
is about access, and
Yeah.
there is far more access.
Wow. That's so sad, frightening, and shocking. And as you dig in, you will start seeing that boys or men have been abused who have not reported, but it's mind blowing. Yes, absolutely. That, and we talked about this earlier, males don't have the language to know this was abuse, this was assault, this was trafficking. They just know, yeah, this weird stuff happens. So I'm sure, like with your research, if you pose the question in such a way, not putting the labels on it, but saying, has this kind of thing ever happened? Has this kind of thing ever happened? It's like, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. And yeah, they get it. And they don't necessarily know, oh, someone was taking advantage of me. Yeah, yeah.
That's why you need the young people themselves to work directly with the research, knowingly with the research, to develop the questions, to develop how they're asked, where they're asked, what it looks like when it's asked, if there are snacks or not. Literally, all of those things matter. Like it matters because it is about. And I always tell this to people because there's some people that are all in for the data, and there's others that are all in for the safety. But really, it's the same thing because if people feel safe, they have access to their story. I mean, you know this if you're a neurodiverse person, right? I have to do some serious meditation sometimes before I can be coherent at
Right,
times,
right,
right?
right.
But like,
If I do not feel safe, I'm not going to tell you anything. And I know
yeah,
I went on a retreat
rightfully so.
for male survivors of just CSA, Men Healing, great group. They used to be part of Male Survivor and they spun off because they did keep doing all these in-person retreats. Also in 2019, I went. So profound, but from day one, the interview process, the application, the screening calls, everything, they just preach safety, 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 and just lay foundational levels of safety. So you get there, you realize, oh, I'm safe. And then even in person, safety, 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 safety. Then we get to the point where you're telling stories and sharing your story. And it's safe to do that because safety, 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 that foundational safety was there. They know that. Kudos to them. Great job. That foundation allowed us to feel safe enough to tell the stories. Otherwise, those IFS parts and stuff, nope, nope, nope. And even that, yeah, my parts is like, what are you doing? You're gonna do this. No, not safe, not safe, not safe. It's like, okay, I got it, guys. We're good. We're good.
Yep.
And
being able to take those breaks, being able to say, hey, we're gonna like,
yeah,
you need to walk away, come
yeah.
back. If you need to,
And their retreats,
do this while walking, it's fine.
All their staff is therapists, licensed therapists. Is all their staff brilliant how they run it, and so helpful. But yeah, they know exactly you need breaks, you need food, you need safety, and yeah, just so helpful. So absolutely laying that groundwork, making sure that they feel safe when you're doing these research, when you're asking them. And yeah, there's a little reward. They get snacks. Cool. Or when you do research surveys, yeah, you get a gift card at the end. Cool. Yeah, I'm doing another one. I get $100 gift card. Sure. It's like a whole big long thing. It's like, oh yeah, you want the big long thing? Yeah, you're okay. That'll work.
That's right.
That's a good thing for my time. All right. Yeah, to honor them and not just, okay, I'm just going to ask you a bunch of questions and shoo you away. Yeah, we're going to feed you. We're going to take care of you. Yeah, absolutely. So that's good. So what other things are you doing with your research? Because I know you're part of GAHTS, and but you do all kinds of things. You got your Up Collective. Tell me all about whatever you want to share about what you're doing now with research.
Well, obviously we've got GAHTS and we've got a research that paper that's going to be coming out before long. We're still working on it.
Hopefully soon. Yes. On survivor leaders. Yes.
Looking at survivor leaders working within the movement and what they experience, and sometimes the ironic, not non-exploitive things that are sometimes experienced there.
Yeah. And sometimes a little borderline exploitive too. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's coming out in the research. Yeah, yeah. Sometimes, yeah, a lot. Yeah, yeah.
But that one thing I'm really excited about right now, I think, is the Minnesota Boys Project. I was literally doing that like an hour and a half before we got on here.
Okay.
Today we had our last development meeting with a cool group of justice involved youth. So youth that have been trafficked or experienced exploitation. They've been arrested. So they're males who have been arrested and gone through the juvenile justice system, but then were later identified as being trafficked, which is really, really common for men and boys. A lot of people, they find that on average, trafficking victims that are found within the justice system, I think on average have like 3 to 5 contacts with the justice system before they're ever identified. So many missed opportunities.
Right.
And so anyway, we're doing a study that's looking at, we have 200 youth that are graduating from a justice involved youth program. And we're going to be just talking to them about their experiences as boys, their experiences just in the networks, the friends and relationships that they have. But we've also worked with this team of guys to help us develop, to really ask the right questions. So asking about like force, coercion, and control as being a part of the justice system, coming from the justice system versus coming from individuals, versus like what that means for their identity, but especially accessing services. And that's really a piece that we're looking at is what is it like being a boy accessing services, needing shelter. This is phase 2 of our research. The first phase, we basically found that there were six emergency shelter beds in the whole state for men and boys. 6, and they're all in one city under one organization.
Right. So in theory, Anita mentioned this in her episode, which will have dropped before this one, that NGOs, if they get any kind of federal funding, they are required to serve both males and females. And so their programs, even though a lot don't, they are required to serve both, or they have a chance of losing federal funding. And sometimes they don't realize that. So yeah, they're not. So there should be a lot more services available, and there's not. Yep.
That's the thing, is a lot of times it's like, sure, we serve anybody, but the shelters and this and that and the other thing, those are all for girls. Also, the access to these therapists, because those therapists only specialize in these things.
Right.
A lot of times the services that boys need are there, but oftentimes they're in the justice system themselves, which means you need to be identified as a criminal before you can be identified as a survivor. Which is, because that's often where that happens, is in those kind of services, right?
Right.
So we're looking at that. And anyway, long story short, I'm really excited about it. And then we're going to do some follow-up interviews. I've got some, going to be doing field work next month. So I'm excited about that. hoping that can go towards for state legislation and hopefully federal legislation to support that. I'd love to see more studies like this happen.
Right.
That and the New York City Schools project, which is we're implementing the prevention education curriculum in all of the schools. So we're kind of entering a fun period right now where like we got all the monitoring and evaluation stuff kind of set. So now we're moving to like building networks and getting people connected with survivors, collaboratives and stuff like that. And so that they can work with parents. So, and the whole thing they're doing is support, don't report, is that kind of thing. So make sure, because a lot of times it is a gut reaction that we call 911 when we identify trafficking. That's not the best thing. They come with the wrong resources.
Right.
You need to come in with a surgeon's scalpel, not a sledgehammer, right?
Right.
And so so we're kind of working at that, working to build capacity at the level of teachers, and then also have a whole curriculum that's going to the students so that they can, but it's also in their language. So it's trying to look at what trafficking actually looks like, which at an emotional level, it is much more like intimate partner violence than it is, but we treat it as the same as drug trafficking or something like that, because that's kind of how the legal system sometimes we'll see it.
Right.
Far more like intimate partner violence, and we know this. It's really cool stuff happening there, and we're working on getting it integrated into the government. Right now, it's on an HHS grant. We're hoping to get it integrated into the government, and that's really rewarding. So that I like.
Excellent. So I know you work a lot with male survivors. In fact, you staffed the soap retreat I went on with Brandon, whose episode's post. Anita was there, who also staffed the weekend. Steve Procopio, who I had interviewed before the podcast, like a year or so before, he also staffed the retreat as well. So you've obviously worked a lot with male trafficking survivors and male CSA survivors. What advice would you give for that male survivor out there in our audience listening? What words of advice or wisdom would you give to them?
See, that's a good question. So I would say develop curiosity. Curiosity is one of the ways out of trauma. Like, it's obviously not the answer.
Right.
But curiosity is the antidote for fear.
Yes. It's interesting you say that. At that men healing retreat I went to, one of the therapists, she said, shame and curiosity cannot coexist. And that's like so true that, once you get that out of the way, it's like, oh, how does that work? What does that do? And we all had stuff.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
That they feel it that way.
Yeah. That.
I wonder why that's going on.
They gave us all stuffies to help, to hold on to dealing with all this crap that we were dealing with. And I had mine, and it's like, I started to be curious about this thing because it's like, it had some heft to it. It's like, there's a battery pack. Why is there? It does stuff. I've held it up. It's a little psychedelic snowman thing, but then I realized I could turn it on, and there was enough juice in the battery. It was mostly dead, but I was able to. It had music, it had lights coming on all over this thing. It's like, because I was curious, it's like, after they said that, it's like, be curious, it's like, cool. But yeah, I mean, all this, that you be curious about yourself, be curious about your healing, what's going on, and absolutely find curious things in the world. It's like, well, I can do that. Ooh, wow. Yes, continue.
In some ways, like, I think that and I'm going to give a shameless plug for research here. While you're at it, you might as well get into some research, because we need more, and we need survivors that are into research.
And basically, research is curiosity. It's like, oh, why are we doing that? Are we doing that? How's this working? Yeah.
And research needs to be rescued from the academe, because it belongs to the communities that need the knowledge, right? That's where, and it needs to be developed there. And there is a part of research, if done right, it can also be a part of therapy. Yes. At least in my experience, it has been.
Yeah, it's been interesting and informative. Has it helped my healing? I don't know. But it's definitely fascinating, and it's helped my knowledge set. And knowing I'm doing more and more advocacy type work as I continue in this field, and having a bigger knowledge set. Some of the questions you pose, it's like, I'm starting to apply them to my own life. When I felt, some of my stories being exploited in different ways. And it's like, gosh, it's been difficult. Another something from chat, as you research, you start going down rabbit holes, and many of the rabbit holes open, but you end up learning a lot from experiencing those rabbit holes, basically what he's saying.
Yeah.
And that's true, because you can go, that curiosity, oh, let's go over here, even though it's not part of what I'm doing over here, let's see what's going. Ooh, a whole nother can of worms is going on over here. Hey, we can do that for our next project. Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And you realize that there's like a little bit of everything. This kind of connects with that over there. And then like when you check that out, actually they're telling the same story. And then, well, what if you ask the same thing over here? Oh, they are saying the same thing. Oh, okay. And then you start triangulating things. Then all of a sudden you're like, wait a second, I think I might have an idea of what's happening. And it's just, I don't know. I love it.
Right.
It's my
absolutely. So be curious. Wonderful way to end. Thank you so much, Jarrett, for your time today. Absolutely. And thank you for being here. And with that, we'll see you next time on the Healing for Male Survivors podcast.
Bye, everybody.
If you would like to learn more about my coaching with Polar Live Consulting, where I provide one-on-one coaching and group coaching, both with a focus on healing for male survivors, reach out to me at polarliveconsulting.com. That is Polar spelled Polar. I would love to hear from you. I want to hear your story. If you would like your story featured on this podcast, contact me via my website. If you like this podcast, please rate and review, because that's how other people can find me, and I really want to spread this message of healing and hope to others. And remember, you are not alone. Healing is possible, and the abuse was not your fault. Let me repeat that. The abuse was not your fault. See you next time on the Healing for Male Survivors podcast.